Welcome to the Be Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Sky Bradshaw, and today we're exploring one of the most essential foundations of spiritual connection, self-trust. This episode, Sacred Work, Sacred Self, Trusting Your Gifts as Part of the Medicine, invites us to remember that our gifts rarely arrive fully formed. They begin as whispers, quiet knowings that ask us to listen before we feel ready. When we doubt ourselves or look outward for permission, that wisdom fades. But when we root into self-trust, we open the doorway for Spirit's guidance to reach us clearly and for our sacred work to take shape with intention and devotion. Today, I'm joined by Susannah Ravenswing, author, sacred craftswoman, healer, and Northern tradition shaman. Susannah's life work weaves ancestral connections, spirit-led practice, and lived experience into a powerful invitation to honor the medicine we each carry. Together, we'll explore how gifts emerge long before we feel prepared, how self-trust strengthens our ability to hear spirit, and how stepping into our sacred work is ultimately an act of courage, presence, and alignment. But before we dive into the Unclouded Heart segment for spiritual messages of wisdom, let's invite ourselves to become present in this moment within our body, mind, and energy. Take a moment to take some deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And as you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, invite your mind, body, and energy to relax, 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 relax. And as we move into this space of complete relaxation, we open up our energies to the ancestors, loved ones, and friends to come together today to heal and guide us and lift us to the highest version of ourselves in the light of the universe, so we may hear what we need to hear, know what we need to know, connect how we need to connect, and be what we need to be for our highest and best good, and the highest and best good of all involved. Sacred work, sacred self. At the center of every spiritual journey lies a simple truth. Self-trust is not inherited. It's a relationship we tend, nurture, and build over time. Often fortifying self-trust is the first work we must do before any other work can truly begin. Just as we grow trust in any meaningful relationship, self-trust grows when we show up consistently, listen without judgment, and honor boundaries. It expands through the ways we practice giving and receiving within ourselves, the giving of compassion and the receiving of wisdom, the giving of honesty and the receiving of clarity, the giving of attention and the receiving of transformation, the dedication we offer and the guidance that returns to meet it. And when we choose to cultivate a relationship where knowing ourselves and loving ourselves become the ground we stand on, something profound begins to shift. The possibilities open, the noise softens, and instead of guessing what is right for us, we begin to feel it. Our body speaks with more clarity. Our energy reaches forward with more intention. Our heart moves with a deeper sense of truth. In that space, when Spirit speaks, the message is not tangled in doubt. It is not overshadowed by fear or the pull of old stories. It rises through us with a tone we recognize, because we have come to know the difference between anxiety and intuition, between desire and genuine guidance, between what pulls us off path and what leads us home. Self-trust doesn't remove the challenges. It simply illuminates the way through them. It becomes the compass that steadies us when life asks us to grow, the anchor that holds us when uncertainty arrives, the inner sanctuary where spirit can land, speak, and guide. With self-trust, we hear more clearly, we sense more deeply, we discern more truthfully, and we walk with a confidence that doesn't come from ego influence, but from alignment. When we root ourselves in self-trust, we return to an ancient remembering that spirit moves most clearly through a vessel that believes in its own worthiness. Self-trust becomes the steady flame that we navigate by, the inner knowing that cannot be argued with, and the quiet strength that allows us to walk our sacred path without shrinking. It is the clarity beneath confusion, the resonance beneath noise, the truth beneath fear. And as that truth strengthens, we stop searching for direction outside of ourselves and begin recognizing that the guidance we've been seeking has been rising from within us all along.
Ready to understand how your mind, body, and energy truly work together? Sky Bradshaw's online course, Understanding Energy in Action, is a practical and soul-centered guide to deepening your awareness of self and soul. Through easy-to-apply lessons, you'll learn how to heighten intuition, interpret dreams, recognize how energy flows through your daily life, and much, much more. You'll move through a rich blend of written lessons, guided meditations, and energy practices, complete with 26 downloadable modules, hands-on exercises, video teachings, and 2 previously recorded live sessions designed to help you experience energy in real time and bring the learning to life. Would you rather take this class live via Zoom? Live sessions begin January 7th and meet the first and third Wednesday evenings of each month through April 2026. Start your year grounded, inspired, and connected to your own energy in motion. Visit beyoursoul.org for more information and to register with our early bird special rate.
Today I'm joined by Susannah Ravenswing. Susannah is a spirit worker, writer, artist, and healer who focuses on living in balance with nature and honoring the Northern tradition of her ancestors. In her role as a traditional shaman, Susannah provides expert divination and helps clients with a wide variety of personal issues. She and her blacksmith husband, Eric, live with their 3 cats in a magical cottage deep in the forests of the Sara Mountains of Northwest North Carolina. I'm so grateful to have her with us today. Thank you so much for being on the show, Susannah. I am super grateful to have you. We have such a good collection of friends in common, and to be able to have this conversation feels just perfect and right to me. Thank you so much.
I was tickled to death when you reached out to me, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great for the 2 of us and great for the world to listen to how we come together. So the theme of the show is self-trust based. And, one of the positions that I really believe deeply is that, building that self-trust at the base of all of the other spiritual work that we do and the foundations of things is really important. And part of that has a lot to do with when we start feeling, sensing, connecting to our gifts, we need to be able to trust ourselves and trust that in that way. And there's a quiet knowing that kind of pairs up when that happens. Can you share one of the first times that you recognize your gifts as something is real and trustworthy? And how did you shift into self-trust when that began to happen?
I think the process must have started at a very early age. I had a rather unusual childhood. My father was a state park superintendent. So I grew up in the isolation of this, large wilderness area, just out in the woods, come home from school, throw down my book bag and disappear into the forest. And I really could feel things there that the adults around me, didn't seem to be able to feel. So very early on, I realized that there was this discrepancy between my lived reality and what everybody else was saying was real.
Mm-hmm.
I can remember my mother saying, "You have too much imagination." I can't imagine saying that to a child, but from her point of view, she saw that as a liability and perhaps even dangerous. And so I had to kind of quietly hold my lived truth at the same time that there was all this external messaging about what seemed to be everybody else's idea of what was true. I think the first most dramatic event happened when I was 19. My paternal grandmother died unexpectedly, and I was in my first apartment, and I just simply knew that she had died. And so I showered and packed my suitcase and put on an appropriate dress and was sitting there when my mother and her minister showed up at my door to give me the news that my grandmother had passed away. And they were kind of flabbergasted. And they said, "How did you know this?" And I said, "I don't know. I just knew," with a capital K. And I do refer to that as the knowing with a capital K. I can't explain how information comes to me, but it is such a profound thread throughout my life that I absolutely have learned to lean into it.
Yeah, it's funny that you said your mother said that because when I was little, my mom used to say, "Stop with your active imagination." And it was it was literally the same wording that whenever I was sensing or feeling something that others weren't sensing and feeling, the first thing, it took me a while to actually realize, because when we're kids, we just think everybody's like us. And so it took a minute for me to realize, like when somebody said, "I don't see that happening," that they weren't looking out into the future and seeing the likelihood of it and coming back to this moment in time, because that's just what I thought it meant, or they're not on the same level. I thought they were sensing vibrations. And
Right.
so it took me a while to even realize like that was different. And that was my mom's catchphrase.
That is very interesting.
She was like, "Stop with your active imagination," when I would say things that they couldn't really process, they didn't understand or they couldn't see the way I saw.
Yeah. My parents were the children of Depression era folks. They were children in the Depression. And, coming up in the 50s, there was so much social pressure for conformity. Everybody needed to kind of fit into the herd, all the sheep look alike. And I think another factor for my mom is that she was dealing with her own mental health issues because she was a sensitive too and had never received any support around how to integrate the things that she sensed and intuited. And so part of her protectiveness of me, I think, came out of her own struggle to figure out what to do with her gifts.
Yeah. It's true. We're taught really early on, like physical focus. So can you see it? Can you touch it? Is it real? Like that's what we're taught, like creates
Mm-hmm.
something that's real. And it can create a lot of discord and fear inside of people when we go into those things. The knowing with a capital K, as you said, that is just a truth in our heart that may be not associated to something I could see or touch or feel, in those ways. How do you help people connect to that sense of self-trust? Like, we kind of grew up in those spaces of knowing that there are these two worlds that are coming together. And it's often hard for me to describe how I just stayed so sure of that the whole time, even though it was in my world, it was really tried to unlearn it from me constantly. And I kept having to come back to that heart-centered truth positioning. So when you work with people, what do you think is a good advice or a good sense of way? Because a lot of times spirit will send us on, I joke and call them side quests. We're going down this road to this activity that the logical world we can touch might not support. So how do you teach trust to people in those ways?
First of all, I explained that these intuitive gifts are just as natural as artistic aptitude or musical talent or mathematical talent, and that there are people in the world who have those gifts and that our society just doesn't acknowledge them. At the
Mm-hmm.
same time, I also stress the importance of learning discernment because I think when the boundaries between the worlds blur for you, it is really, really important to be able to discern, this just some kind of projection, of my ego or my imagination, or is this something that truly I am sensing and that I can trust and lean into? And I think it takes years to really cultivate that, especially if you are really strongly gifted to sense things outside of sort of the normal box.
Mm-hmm.
I also really emphasize to people the importance of what I refer to as sovereignty. We use the word sovereignty normally referring to a country or, some organization that has laws and rules to govern itself with. But in the case of an individual, I use the term sovereignty to mean assessing what your gifts and resources are and being prepared to manage those in a self responsible kind of way. And in the South, at least, women are really taught to take care of everybody but themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of the clients who come to me are women of a certain age who've spent their whole lives basically denying their truths, denying their knowledge and awareness, taking care of everybody else. And they get to a certain point and they're like, I can't do this any longer. I'm at this place where either I take ownership of me or something's going to give. And, I really encourage them to lean into and explore that process of assessing your internal resources and knowing, do I have the spoons to make this commitment? It's one thing to undertake to assist someone else when you've negotiated that around a
Mm-hmm.
balance of their needs and your needs. But most of the time, there's just a presumption that, yes, you'll be there to take care of it. And I feel like that's very disrespectful.
Absolutely. And because it's a learned behavior, it's taught, like you said, in the South, it's very common. When we begin to realize this is not balance, like there is no giving and receiving. And if we looked at, nature, as like it works very hard to keep things in balance. If there's too much of one thing, it will create too much of something else in order to counterbalance that out. But when we look at our relationships or our inner nature, then we buy into this imbalance. Sacrifice is love, or, over giving is, beauty, or those things that we are taught are actually asking us to co-sign on imbalance in our world. And so when we can bring it back to that truth of like, no, wait, the spiritual property is in giving I receive and receiving I give. There is a throughput. It doesn't have to be ticket for ticket or dollar for dollar, but there has to be some sort of exchange because it's going to be taken or given someplace else.
Yes.
Then creating that, bringing that truth back to people's hearts is really, really important.
In the northern traditions, these are the spiritual traditions prior to conversion to Christianity that you find in the Scandinavian countries and across northern Eurasia over into Siberia. And one of the common beliefs in that vast, vast area is this idea of gebo, or sacred reciprocity, that balance, give and flow. And I think that in so many indigenous cultures, what you have is a society that is relationally based. And for everybody to be successful and to thrive, there has to be that reciprocity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's the more natural position to me. That feels like home. And then when we go into those, like I should over, the shoulds,
The
shoulding all
shoulds.
over ourselves.
The forest of the shoulds.
It definitely can get super tricky.
I see that in a sense as a legacy of, the patriarchal kind of colonial mindset, the idea that everything is there as a resource to be exploited, including other people.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, if you come from an animist mindset, as I do, everything is inspirited. And so all of my connections with things are collaborative. I'm collaborating with my cup that holds my tea, and I'm grateful that it has the shape and the substance to be able to afford me the comfort of holding my tea.
Beautiful. Yes. I definitely feel that deeply too. Has there been a point in time when you had to step out into those brave spaces? And, I think a lot of people call it like the leap of faith, but, I have a tricky relationship with concept of faith versus knowing, the inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And so has there been a time when you just knew something and felt compelled to act on it where others maybe weren't in agreement with that knowing, or their logic, the give and take imbalance came into play?
It's hard for me to pinpoint a specific point in time when I started to do that because it's been so much a part of the flow of my life. As I commented earlier, from a very early age, I had this awareness that my lived reality did not necessarily line up with what other people around me seemed to be experiencing. And now, I understand at this point in my life that part of that is because I am autistic, and so my brain's wired differently. I didn't know that until I was well into my 60s, and boy, would it have helped to know it earlier. During the time that my mother was struggling with her health, I was kept by one of my aunts who was a very experienced educator, and she understood that I wasn't like a lot of other children. And I can remember her saying to me over and over again this quotation, "To thine own self be true." In other words, listen to your heart, listen to what you know. And she didn't use those exact terms, but that really took root in me. Certainly in my 20s, when I had begun really making a name for myself as a sacred metalsmith, and I was doing jewelry and sacred objects in gold and silver that were informed by the traditions of ancient cultures and their spiritual beliefs. That was at a point in time where that was kind of unusual and innovative. I did that for 50 years, and certainly in the beginning, a lot of it had to be framed as drawing from myth because
Hmm.
people weren't ready to deal with the idea that there might be an actual goddess or goddesses or, holy powers of some sort other than the Judeo-Christian God.
Hmm.
And so some of those pieces really push the boundary without, just coming right out and having a fist fight with it.
Right.
Certainly by the time I was in my late 40s, I was one of the first really openly pagan people in the North Carolina Piedmont and was leading community open circles and appearing as a consultant on TV and helping the local police force with occult crimes and things like that. And that was pretty nervy, at the time.
Hmm.
I think it had a lot of kind of challenging impacts for my twin sons who caught a lot of pushback. It wasn't so much that people in the community came for me, but their children came for my children. And so
Mm.
that was problematic. And yet it's almost like I have this internal taboo that doesn't let me do anything except be as straightforward and truthful as I'm capable of being. My husband says I'm blunt as a bag of hammers because I just have no filters. I just can't put the mask on and say the polite things. I say, what's there. And I think most of the people around me understand where that's coming from, but I'm sure sometimes people don't know what to make of it, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think that's a beautiful way to be. I think if to me, one of my core beliefs is truth brings choice. So if
Yes.
I'm my honest version of myself to you and you like it or you don't like it, you get to make a choice based on that. I'm not tricking you into something that you didn't agree to
Oh,
by
yes.
putting on the mask or being deceptive. And so I think it's a beautiful way to be.
There's so much power in authenticity. When I wrote my most recent book, Singing to the North Wind, I think that part of what I did in just very baldly recounting my life was to say, look, it doesn't always make sense when you're going through it, but standing in that truth, there's power in that.
Yeah.
There's energy to be creative with. I really believe that people judge you based on them, not on you.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their own filters, their own beliefs, and so they're going to assess whatever through all of that. And once I realized that what they thought about me was really about them, I stopped really worrying.
Right. Right. And we can be the mirror without taking it personally, like, like just shine where we are. And I think that that's what we are for everyone, and everyone's that for us. So if, I look at someone, even if I see someone annoying me, then I'm like, well, what about me? Do I need to know about that annoyance?
Why am I getting triggered by this?
Yeah, I think that's true. That's true. Is there anything else about self-trust or trusting yourself on the path that you think is important we didn't get to?
Give yourself time and space to just be. We tend to be so busy that we disengage from really being present in the moment. And in the moment is where we have our greatest power. That's part of that thing that I was talking about earlier of sovereignty. When we're in the moment, we are fully embodied and experiencing exactly where we are in our lives. And when we're running around being busy and thinking, what do I need to do next? Or why didn't I do that differently? We abandon ourselves in the moment, really, is what it seems like to me. And I really encourage people to give themselves the gift of being present in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I like to remind people that they should be their own best friend, because if you know yourself and you know what your needs are, and you trust yourself, because trust is earned over time. So it's like, as you were saying earlier, any relationship, it builds, and it builds through attentiveness and awareness and listening and, all of these things. And when we turn that to become our own best friend, then that sovereignty becomes easier, and the understanding of present moment becomes more valuable in those spaces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That was great. I ask every guest 3 questions. And so we'll start there, and then we'll go into talking a little bit about some of the things that you have coming out. And I'm excited for some of the things that are going on. You have going on in your world. So the first question is, what do you think it means to be your soul?
I suspect I have a different perspective than a lot of people. In the Northern tradition, we see the soul as being multipartite rather than just this singular energy or entity or presence. And so it's comprised of things like the energy template or aura that helps inform how your physical body forms, and your will, your memory and intellect. The 2 halves of your brain are part of your soul in our view. Your relationship with your ancestors, your integrity and your credibility in the community are considered part of your soul in the Northern tradition. So it's a very interesting and rich and complex concept. To be in your soul, for me, means really, like I said, to be in the moment, to be fully embodying, have the courage to be authentic in the moment and aligned with who you truly are. And that brings all parts of your being into congruity. And when you are being congruent, you're acting in keeping with what some people might call your destiny. And in my tradition, we call your weird, WYRD. So the threads of your weird are sort of your destiny and where your karma is bringing you to, and what you're ultimately called to accomplish and do with your life.
I love that. That's beautiful. That gave me chills. So, what is one self-care practice that you do to help fuel your energy?
Oh, walking in my beloved woods. I've been a creature of the forest since I was a very small child. And Eric and I are really fortunate here at Two Trees to have land around us that we are the stewards of and share our life with. And it really is a third partner in our marriage in a very real way. Just to walk out of the house and walk down through the forest and come to a tree that's an old friend and sit down with my back against her and sing, or listen to the birds sing, or just smell the soil and the air and be part of this wonderful dance that is this ecosystem that we share in. And I always come back from that feeling washed clean inside and recentered and renewed.
Oh, yes, I love that. So, how centered and renewed is the next question, basically. So, how do you feel? What is feeling centered and balanced like in your world in general? And you answered a little bit of it. You can expand, maybe.
I sat down this morning and I tuned the Celtic harp that I play. And when all the strings are in tune, you can pluck any combination and it just sounds wonderful. It's pretty hard to make anything sound bad on it. So when I'm centered, that's how it feels for me to be me. It just feels like everything is in resonance, that the chord is true and sweet. There's energy there available to accomplish whatever I need to accomplish. And I have clarity about what is mine and what is not mine.
Yes. It gave me the smile cramps. That was really good. My smile got so big. I was feeling the muscles there. I love it. Well, thank you so much. So go ahead and talk a little bit about your offerings. I know you have something being published and some books that I think that everyone should connect with your wisdom. So can you let us in on some of that information?
Well, first of all, I really welcome people to reach out to me through my website, www.susannahravenswing.com, which has a lot more about my practice and the various services that I offer. And it's very different from what most people think of. The word shamanism gets thrown around very casually right now, and most of the people doing it don't do what it really is or what I do. Right. So I encourage people to go there and to reach out to me. I do a lot of spiritual counseling work. I do a lot of in-depth divination. I know you are an experienced diviner, and that's just a real powerful thing to be able to share with people, to act as a channel for information and guidance through their holy powers and your holy powers. I do a lot of land healing and house attunement work. I do a lot of work in healing battlefields, because I work with the ancestors and the dead a lot in my practice, going to military battlefields and helping that energy to heal and come to a rest point. Feels like sacred work that I'm really called to. In addition to that, I've been doing a lot of writing since I retired from the jeweler's bench. I still am creative in lots of other ways besides making jewelry, but the writing has become increasingly important. I just had an article really describing the relationship that Eric and I have with the land here at Two Trees, which is a very animistic relationship, which has come out in the most recent winter edition of Sacred Hoop magazine. Sacred Hoop is probably the world's foremost magazine on traditional shamanism and is available by subscription. In addition to that, I have a couple of books out. The first one, which came out in 2019, is called The Dwergar Bok. The Dwergar were the Norse dwarves who were the beings that they saw as the masters of all sorts of creative processes. Tolkien's dwarves are a very good take on what Norse dwarves are like. And because I work with them as a body of spirits, and there were not really any books out there about them, they came to me and asked me to do a book for them. And so that was the product of that relationship. In addition to that, most recently, I published Singing to the North Wind, The Calling to an Extraordinary Life, which is a autobiographical accounting of what called me into doing what I do. And how it is that I came to live in a magical cottage in the forest. I feel like that by being willing to be just very candid and very open about, my own personal challenges and struggles as a neurodivergent person, as an intersex person who doesn't fit comfortably in either male or female gender, as a person who's never been able to fit into any of society's tidy boxes, that if I could be brave enough to be really transparent and authentic in what I shared, I might create a space that would empower other people to step into their authentic selves. And so that's my real hope with this book that is a child of my heart. And I hope that folks out there will pick up a copy and find something that resonates for them in that. It's available through bookstores, if not in stock by request, and certainly through Amazon if people want to go that route. And I hope folks will check it out.
I think they will, because that's the whole base of the podcast is the same, through having these conversations with people that oftentimes people look up to or people think have done great things and realize they're just like me. We have all been through these things. We're all just humans on the planet doing our best, and by showing that experience and bravery and wisdom and letting others realize it can be with them, as well. They can do the same. Thank you so much for being
it's been a
here. I have had such a great time with you, and I super appreciate it. And thank you, dear listeners, for being here, for choosing awareness, for creating space to listen, and for allowing this conversation to bring you closer to your own inner truth. We know you have lots of choices, and we are grateful you took the time today to be with us for this conversation. A heartfelt thank you to Susannah for sharing your wisdom and the clarity that comes from walking a spirit-led path. Your presence reminds us that our gifts reveal themselves most fully when we trust the one receiving them.
Did you know Sky Bradshaw has a full online classroom of offerings to support your healing, growth, and energetic alignment? From journaling journeys to energy education, her courses are rooted in real tools for real people walking a soul-led path. One of her most loved offerings, the Big Journal of Energetic Boundaries, is available now, and the first 10 people who use the code BeYourSoul will get it for just $99. Whether you're new to energy work or looking to deepen your practice, you'll find something here that meets you where you are and helps you grow from there. Explore the full library of courses at www.beyoursoul.org.
This is a practice I've found helpful in my work, and maybe you will too. It's called Heart-Led Truth Map. Self-trust is one of the most essential foundations of a spiritually aligned life. It's the quiet confidence that allows you to recognize your own wisdom, to feel the difference between fear and intuition, and to walk forward even when you can't yet see the full path. Self-trust isn't something we stumble into. It's something we build through presence, honesty, compassion, and the willingness to listen to ourselves with the same reverence we listen to spirit. When we learn to trust our own inner truth, every part of the journey becomes clearer. This practice strengthens that trust by inviting your heart, body, mind, and energy into the same conversation. Each part of you holds a piece of your knowing. When you allow them to speak, and more importantly, when you allow yourself to listen, you will uncover the truth that lives beneath old stories, old fears, and old patterns. This is where alignment happens. This is where clarity rises. This is where your heart-led truth becomes unmistakable. We're going to check in with the heart, the body, the mind, and the energy in a way that opens your heart-led truth through soulful, grounded reflection. Each part of you has something wise to offer. This isn't about forcing answers. It's about creating enough space for your truth to reveal itself from within. So grab your trusty journal, your favorite writing utensil, and find a cozy place to settle in. Take a moment to bring forward a choice, decision, or situation that you're actively contemplating. It may be something small, something tender, something significant, or something that you haven't been ready to look at more closely. Trust the one that rises first. It's often the one that needs the most tending. This becomes the anchor for your heart-led truth. Begin by writing that choice or question at the top of your page. Then create a few columns beneath it, listing the possibilities in front of you so you can check in with each potential path clearly and intentionally. And now it's time to check in with your heart. Place a hand over your heart and breathe gently into your chest. Ask yourself, how does this choice honor me? What does my heart feel about each option of this decision? Write what rises first, before logic, before fear, before explanation. The heart isn't the only voice we listen to, but it is the one that reveals our deepest soul truth. It shows us what matters, what hurts, what we long for, and what we cannot ignore. Listening here matters because the heart anchors us to our core values and to the truths we carry in our most authentic spaces. Now that your heart has spoken, gently shift your awareness into your physical body. Take a few breaths and feel your way into it. Then ask, when I contemplate each option of this choice, where do I feel expansion or contraction? What is my body telling me about this decision? Notice softening, tightening, warmth, heaviness, tingling, grounding, whatever arises. The body responds to truth more quickly than the mind does. It signals alignment and misalignment without language. It shows where you're holding tension, where something feels steady or supportive, and where something feels unsafe or resistant. Listening here matters because the body carries experience, intuition, and instinct. From the body, let your awareness rise into your thoughts and emotional landscape. Remember, thoughts and emotions happen. What matters is how we respond to them. Ask yourself, when I contemplate each direction of this choice, where do my old stories take over? And where does my wisdom feel rooted? Write both honestly, the fear-based narratives and the calm, steady knowing underneath. The mind is not something to battle. It is a storyteller and a protector. Listening here helps you recognize which thoughts are echoes of the past and which ones are truth speaking now. Thank those old thoughts and feelings for helping you at one point in your life, then invite them to return to the place from which they came. What remains is more aligned with your truth. When you're ready, shift your attention into the subtle layers of your energy. Energy offers an ever-present connection between your past, present, and future in one continuous flow. It reveals your deepest understanding through the simplest cues. Ask yourself, when I contemplate the different parts of this choice, where do I feel them in my energy? Where does it feel supportive or strengthening? And where does it feel opposing or giving me those small warning pings? Your energy speaks in subtle ways that often arrive before thought or emotion, through shifts in openness, heaviness, warmth, or resistance. These signals come from the deeper layers of intuition, the places where spirit, instinct, and truth meet. When you listen to your energy, you're listening to the part of you that recognizes alignment long before the mind can make sense of it. Honoring these signals builds self-trust because you begin to distinguish what pulls you off your path from what gently guides you towards it. Now that you've checked in with the trilogy bodies, return to the heart. Place your hand over your heart once more and take a slow, steady breath. Look gently over everything you've written, the messages from your body, the stories and wisdom from your mind, and the signals from your energy. Notice how each part offers a different angle, a different piece of the knowing you carry. Your heart is where these insights come together and become something whole. It is where understanding becomes direction. It is where clarity becomes movement. Now ask yourself, does this choice honor me and my heart-led truth in supporting my future. And remember, this work isn't about knowing the entire path before you take a single step. It's about recognizing the next honest, aligned, quietly compelling step in the direction you are being called. When we make mindful, conscious decisions, we create space for all parts of the self to participate, rather than defaulting to logic or control alone. Logic has its place, but it can only see what is already known. The trilogy bodies reveal what is possible. When these parts work together, the next step becomes less about certainty and more about alignment, less about forcing a direction and more about allowing one. Self-trust doesn't come from having every answer. It comes from honoring the truth that rises within you. It grows from listening, integrating, and allowing your inner truth to guide you forward. Because when you trust yourself, you stop searching for the path and begin walking the one your soul has been calling you toward all along. May you be well, may you feel whole, may you be blessed, and may you find peace. And may you always be your soul.
If something in today's episode spoke to your soul, you don't have to stop here. Visit beyoursoul.org, where you'll find a wide circle of support. Love Church, our free Sunday gathering, streaming live every second and fourth Sunday. The Be Your Soul classroom, full of self-paced courses, guided journals, and healing tools. Our YouTube channel, home to meditations, interviews, and spirit-led support you can revisit anytime. And of course, all podcast episodes, ready when you need a message, reminder, or a little reconnection. Everything we create is rooted in one mission. When the one is strengthened, the sum is strengthened.